Your Excellency, dear guests, I'm very happy to welcome you today to the online meeting of BBBA's members with His Excellency Her Majesty Ambassador to Bulgaria, Dixon. We regret that we can't see each other in person today, but we are very grateful to the Ambassador for his hospitality and for the opportunity to have this conversation today. My name is Miroslava Alexandrova. As the chair of the Bulgarian-British Association, I'm honored today to purview all the many questions that we've received in advance from our registered participants, as well as all the questions that we are going to get in the course of today's event. Since the establishment of the Chamber, the British Embassy has strongly supported it, and we work together in close cooperation. Last year, we were very sad to say goodbye to Her Excellency Emma Hopkins, but we were very happy and very grateful to welcome His Excellency Dixon. He is ready today to answer the questions we receive from our network. Ambassador, we receive really a lot of questions for you today, even from Holland. My first question is related to football. Please tell us, will Bulgarian fans be able to enjoy British football as freely as before Brexit?
Yes, is the short answer. Firstly, thank you, let me say, a real pleasure to be with you today. Thank you so much for coming to the residence, and I'm looking forward to a good online and interactive discussion with those watching today. Hopefully one day we'll be able to do this again in person. I think football and the Premier League in particular is one of those great kind of exports from the UK, and it's known worldwide. I'm an Aston Villa fan. You very kindly mentioned the Holte End. And Bulgarians will absolutely be able to continue to travel to the UK, to be able to watch football in the UK, and indeed to be able to watch it on TV here in Bulgaria. I think I actually am able to see more of the Premiership here in Bulgaria than I can back home.
Oh, that's an excellent news. I would say a breaking news. But please tell us, what is your vision about trade and investment between our two countries?
So for me, and I think this will come as no surprise, but trade and investment is a vital, essential part of what the British Embassy's mission is here in Bulgaria. The good news is that bilateral trade has grown by 50% over the course of the last 5 years. And the UK is the 5th largest investor in Bulgaria. That's great, but we have much higher aspirations than that, and we want to go further. We very much welcome the conclusion of the Trade and Cooperation Agreement between the UK and the European Union. This provides a really solid basis for building on those numbers and going forward and building that new trade relationship that will be of benefit to both parties. For us, our underlying vision for the partnership between the UK and Bulgaria is a strong UK-Bulgaria partnership with a strong partner in Bulgaria that is tackling shared challenges around serious organised crime, hostile state activity, global environmental change, and which is underpinned by shared values, a commitment to open societies, and is therefore allowing trade and prosperity and people-to-people links between our two countries to flourish. And I'm full of sort of ambition and aspiration for that going forward. And from what I've seen in my time here, I think Bulgaria is a great investment destination for British businesses, and I think there is a lot that Bulgarian businesses can continue to enjoy in their trade relationship with the UK. Bulgaria's got a skilled, multilingual, low-cost operating business environment in which tax is low, and it is entirely understandable in those circumstances that there's a lot of British companies who've been attracted to come invest and set up offices in Bulgaria. And I absolutely want to see that continue. COVID's the big story, obviously. And I think we have seen some strong growth numbers despite the pandemic up until over the course of the last few years. And there's a real imperative of coming out of this pandemic as quickly as we possibly can through vaccinations to ensure that travellers can travel back and forth, business people can continue to do business, that we'll see more tourists here, and companies will start to invest in ways that they perhaps might not have the confidence to do so at the moment in the context of the pandemic. So I'm hugely excited about the future. There's a lot to get through, both in terms of the pandemic, but also I think probably British and Bulgarian companies adjusting to some of the new realities of how we do business between the two countries. But I think there's a real strong aspiration and a strong appetite in business communities, both in the UK and Bulgaria, to develop that partnership.
Tell us, what do you think the trade cooperation agreement mean for the relations between the UK and Bulgaria?
I mean, I think the first thing I'd say is, it's fantastic news that there's a deal. I mean, there was a lot of uncertainty affecting the business environment over the course of the last few months. And I think what this now allows us to do is to focus on the future. The future as strong security partners, the future as two countries that have shared concerns about organised crime, about the stability of the region, about the global challenges that we all have in front of us, but also specifically, I think, for citizens in our two countries, it provides some predictability as to what life is going to be like. And I think, crucially for companies, there is now a growing understanding of what the new realities are, what the new processes and procedures are. Some of that will take time to bed down a little bit, but I think it gives us an opportunity now to turn a corner and to build on that certainty that the TCA provides. And we absolutely want to capitalise on that opportunity across the waterfront of the relationship.
Tell us more about what the deal means for Bulgarians in the UK and about the Brits in Bulgaria.
So for me, this is up front and centre in perhaps the most important element in the future relationship and the trade and cooperation agreement, in that it provides, as I say, certainty for real people in real places living their lives. And there's been a high degree of uncertainty over the course of the last few months, if not longer, about what is going to happen. I think it's worth setting this in some context, though. There are nearly 250,000 Bulgarian nationals who've applied for settlement status in the UK. We think around about 11,000 British nationals now call Bulgaria home. And at a very real human level, our peoples are probably linked like at no other time in our history, at a very real human people-to-people level. And that, I think that is really, really important. I think what the deal does is to provide a basis for people to plan to go forward. Under the terms of the withdrawal agreement, those Bulgarian nationals who were living in the UK prior to the end of the transition agreement, by the end of December, are able to apply and are still able to apply until the end of this June to have settled status in the UK. And that gives them and their families, residents in the UK, rights and privileges to continue to live their lives in the way in which they have done, in many cases, for a good number of years. And I'm really pleased that that is equally the case on a reciprocal basis for British nationals here. So I think certainty is the main thing, and we've got that basis for people to move forward.
As of 1st of January, UK left the EU. As you mentioned, the trade agreement has been reached. It's a favourable one. But still, there are so many people who are asking how the deal will affect their lives, their movement, their travel on business, and as tourists. Okay,
so for those who have got settled status under the terms of the withdrawal agreement, they will be able to come and go, travel before, as has always been the case. Those people will continue to have rights in the UK to access the National Health Service, to send their kids to school, send their kids to university in ways that are kind of unchanged. For people moving forward who want to kind of travel back and forth between the two countries, and I know that many of your viewers today will be thinking about kind of business visits and travel, etc. UK nationals will be able to continue to travel and visit Bulgaria. and indeed Bulgarian nationals will be able to continue to travel and visit the UK. And they will be able to visit the UK and stay for up to 6 months, as long as they're not engaged in commercial activities or working. So if it's to see families, to see friends, to see football matches, they'll absolutely be able to do that visa free. It's when they want to start to be able to work, and perhaps we can come back to what that means in practical terms, say for people who are going on business visits. You can continue to do that without a visa.
So there will be no restrictions when we travel on business?
So there are no restrictions when you travel on business, subject to a certain set of kind of criteria, which I'm very happy to talk you through. So if you're turning up in the UK to attend a meeting, to attend conferences, seminars, interviews, give one-off short talks, negotiate and sign trade deals and contracts.
For a business trip.
For a business trip, essentially. I mean, I think you don't need a visa in those circumstances. The distinction is that if you're arriving in the UK to work, so if you're arriving to work as for a UK company or as a freelancer or an internship, or you're going to be earning money as a result of that particular period of time that you're there, from that period of time that you're there, then in those circumstances you'd need a visa. But actually, what we want to do is to be able to encourage people to travel back and forth to do business, to come to the UK. The context in which this conversation is taking place, of course, is COVID, and there are travel restrictions at the moment between the two countries, either in terms of restrictions on outbound or inbound travel, requirements for PCR tests. This has become a reality for all of us. But my hope and expectation is that once we're past that point, actually the systems that we have in place, the entitlement to travel to the UK without a visa for visits for up to 6 months, within those criteria, and they're all available on the gov.uk website, will ensure that people such as yourself, such as our viewers today, will be able to continue to carry out business in very normal ways.
When will the UK stop accepting EU ID cards at the border?
So we will stop accepting EU ID cards for people who are not resident in the UK from the 1st of October this year. So from the 1st of October, if you're resident in Bulgaria or if you live elsewhere, European Union national, you will need to present a passport on arrival in the UK. That doesn't apply to those EU nationals whose rights are protected under the terms of the withdrawal agreement, namely those who've applied under the settled status scheme to stay in the UK. They will be able to continue to use their national identity cards for travel at least until the end of 2025.
Excellent. Sounds great.
But for people who, there will be changes. For people who are travelling from Bulgaria, from the 1st of October this year, they will need a passport. But there is a greater degree of continuity for those who are settled in the UK.
Thank you. Please tell us, it said that 100% tariff liberalization has been reached, or the zero quota. What does it mean in practice?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really important point about the TCA, about the Trade and Cooperation Agreement, because for the first time in a trade deal of this scale, we and our EU partners have been able to secure an agreement that ensures that the zero tariff, zero quota, which is a level of tariff liberalisation that is unprecedented in an EU FTA. What that means is that all UK and EU products between the two markets will benefit from zero tariffs. So all FTAs, there are rules of origin which determine where a product comes from, and determines whether they will be subject to tariffs. So for products that are coming from the EU or from the UK and being traded between the two countries, between the two the two sides, there are no tariffs and there are no quotas in place. The complexity arises, and I'm sure many of your members will know that already, is where there is an element of the content of that product that is sourced from a third market, and at that point there is the potential for some charges. But as a principle, in terms of the trading in goods between the two markets, it's zero tariff and zero quotas, which is a really positive thing.
Another very important topic is related to education, and especially to the access to UK universities.
Yeah.
Currently, there are around 6,000 Bulgarian students in the UK. This number might decrease due to the new regulations and the lack of students' financing. Are there any incentives for EU students that are expected?
So, I mean, I think the numbers of Bulgarians studying in the UK is a really important part of the story about our relationship. It's roughly 6,000. Equally, there's 2,500 British students studying in Bulgarian universities. So, this is a two-way partnership. And, as ambassador, I really want to see that continue and to prosper and to flourish, because I think students in both countries can get and benefit from a really rich student experience, get a great education, whether they're travelling from Bulgaria to the UK or vice versa. I think for us, the UK has some world-class universities. I think 3 or 4 British universities figure in the top 10 universities in the world. And the UK is the biggest global destination for students around the world. And we want that to continue. It's good for our university sector. It's good for students who are coming to our universities, but it's also good for that kind of brand identity of what the UK stands for. Science and how world-class education establishments are kind of part and parcel of what people think of when they think of the UK. And I really want to be able to see Bulgarian students continue to be able to go to the UK and to study in UK universities. In terms of what the changes mean, I mean, the first thing is that students who are already enrolled in this academic year and will be enrolled for subsequent years as a result of having started, for instance, a degree course, nothing changes. So if you're already subject to, you're already signed up, as long as you meet the ongoing residency requirements, nothing changes about your ability to access education or indeed the funding that you were offered when you started that education course. One caveat to that is that the devolved administrations in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland are still working out what their arrangements will be for students coming in from the EU and indeed elsewhere for the future. But what the requirements do mean is that, the changes do mean is that obviously now we've left the EU, students coming from the EU will be treated as third country nationals, third country students. They won't be eligible, as you say, for student finance under the terms of from the student loans company as a result. But we do know that many UK universities are continuing to offer sort of special deals for students coming from the EU, continuing to offer home rates for students coming from EU countries. So I think people should absolutely look at what individual universities are offering. I think the final thing I'd say is that the UK has put in place a thing called the Turing Scheme, named after the great British scientist Alan Turing, and which is designed to enable British students to be able to travel and study worldwide, including in the European Union. As you know, it wasn't possible during the terms of the TCA negotiations to reach agreement on a replacement for the Erasmus Plus scheme. And we would love it if European governments were in a position to reciprocate that and to put in place schemes to allow their students to travel and to be funded to go overseas.
I'm pretty certain that the universities will find a way to offer incentives to the talented students. Now, what will happen to the prices of calls? I mean, mobile calls and the transfer of mobile data like internet. We know from the Bulgarian carriers that they will not make any changes to the prices till the end of June, but how about after that?
So, I mean, this is, essentially this is a commercial matter for the companies involved. What the Trade and Cooperation Agreement does is to say that mobile phone operators need to have transparent and reasonable rates for roaming, whether that's for EU nationals coming into the UK or UK nationals going into travelling into the European Union. And the biggest UK operators have said that they don't plan to reintroduce roaming charges for EU countries. And some already are offering roaming at no extra cost in many other destinations, including, I know already, the US. As I say, it's ultimately a commercial decision for the operators, including for UK and Bulgarian mobile operators. So I'd advise people to check with their supplier, with their provider, to see what will be the situation in terms of roaming charges. But certainly our indication is that many operators, certainly UK ones, the biggest ones, are saying they're not going to revert to the big roaming charges of the past.
I see. How about the double tax treaty signed between our two countries? Will it remain in force, and are there any changes planned?
So will it remain in force? Yes, and we expect to maintain a double taxation treaty between the UK and Bulgaria going forward. In fact, the double taxation treaty is up for review this year, as it is on a periodic basis, and I know that the BBBA has kindly supported us and colleagues in my team and colleagues at HM Revenue and Customs with some proposals for updates and revisions. So, I mean, we're really grateful for that input, and we're hoping that will be a relatively smooth process, as it usually is when you replace the double taxation agreement, when you update it.
We'll be happy to help, especially the Legal and Tax Committee at the BBBA.
Thank you.
The next question seems quite complicated to me, and I will just read it aloud. Currently, when ordering from an online store in the UK, we pay VAT in the UK and then a 20% charge at Bulgarian customs when importing.
Yeah.
Will a solution be found so that to avoid double taxation and eventually to skip the VAT refund procedure?
So this is complicated, and I mean, we understand very much the complexity around this, and we're aware of a number of issues faced by British and Bulgarian citizens, impacting also on companies. There have been circumstances where things have gone wrong and where people have had to pay VAT twice, where there have been delays and where there have been charges. I think our sense is that slowly we're starting to see resolution of a number of these issues where companies, suppliers, online marketplaces are starting to become a bit more aware and attuned to what the new realities are in terms of the setup for the future. But it is, as you say, complicated. I mean, I think the first key thing to say is that for products bought online, say from the UK and shipped to Bulgaria, that are less than 30 lev, there's no VAT. That'll change from the beginning of July, when VAT will start to be applied to those products. For products that are valued between, I think, around about 20 euros and 150 euros, there's no customs duties, but VAT is applicable at a 20% rate. But crucially, people should only be paying VAT in one market. They shouldn't be paying it in both. The other thing that's really important here is that shipments over 150 euros are not also subject to customs duties, as long as they meet the rules of origin things that I talked about earlier, and that I think is where quite a lot of the complexity is coming through in terms of purchasing things from suppliers in the UK that may have been produced in another part of the world. I think the final thing I'd just say around all of this, and it is complicated, is that if a company or a supplier is looking to source significant amounts of products from the UK or indeed from other countries, it's worth getting specialist tax advice. I know that there's a number of tax advisors in the BBA's ranks, but apart from VAT and excise duty that's levied on alcohol and tobacco products, there should be no additional taxes. VAT should only be paid in one market, and there should be no additional duties or charges levied by the public authorities, as long as, crucially, those the goods that are being shipped meet the rules of origin. Of
course. Bulgaria is famous with its wine. Do you think that Brexit will affect negatively the import and respectively the consumer prices of Bulgarian wine in the UK?
I very much hope not. Bulgarian wine, as I've discovered even more so since I've been here, is a fantastic product. And I think that as the UK looks to diversify a range of different markets, I hope that Bulgarian wine will be very much in that mix. And I'm confident that traders, and we're in contact with a number of them, will be able to adapt to meet the new border controls and customs procedures. I know we're going to be supporting the BBBA's virtual wine tasting event on the 15th of April, which will be great fun. But I certainly see some of the fantastic produce that's available in Bulgaria, including the wine, but not exclusively, and do think that there's a marketplace in the UK for all of this. So myself and my team stand absolutely ready to help companies that are looking to branch into the UK market in these areas, because I think there's an awful lot to offer.
How could you further facilitate the trade relations, and what can we do to further facilitate the relations between our two countries?
I think it's a really good question. Facilitating trade is what an embassy does. Right, it's part and parcel of what of our core mission here as the British Embassy here in Bulgaria. And as I said at the top, I'm really pleased that we've seen considerable success over the course of the last few years. Trade having grown 50% in the last 5 years, and that's bilateral trade as well. But we're not complacent about that. We know that we're in a competitive marketplace. We know that the end of the TCA and COVID changes many of the realities. The adoption of the TCA and the UK's departure from the EU, COVID changes many of the realities that we have taken for granted. And we're going to have to work really hard. I think we are going to be focusing first and foremost on a number of the things that you've just talked about today, about making sure that the TCA is fully implemented, that companies are aware of what it is that they've got to do, the documentation that they are going to need to produce. A lot of our work is now going to be focused on resolving problems around market access and awareness and understanding, because while I'm pleased that there has not been significant disruption in trade between the UK and Bulgaria at the end of the transition period, we are conscious that there have been some challenges, and we're here absolutely to try and unpick and resolve some of those challenges. I think going forward, I do see some real opportunities for the UK to expand its investment offer in Bulgaria. Firstly, hopefully the end of COVID, as and when it comes, we'll see the return of tourists, business travellers in significant numbers, which will be good for the Bulgarian economy, be good for the UK service sector as well, which is also heavily plugged in. But looking forward, I think we see opportunities for the UK in terms of its offer around green technology. For instance, we know that countries and indeed companies right around the world are going to need to change and are already changing the kind of products that they are bringing to market to ensure that the environmental impact is much more manageable. And we see a real place for the UK in this. The UK is one of the leading innovators in green technology, one of the leading investment hubs for green technology. We also see quite a lot of opportunity for the UK and UK companies here in Bulgaria in relation to tech. And we've seen a lot of UK companies and indeed international companies setting up here in the tech sector. The UK is still the world's biggest destination for fintech finance and for fintech more broadly. And we see a huge amount of opportunity for bringing some really high-tech UK solutions to the marketplace here in Bulgaria. So, there's a lot for us to do in terms of facilitating trade. There's a lot for us to do to help bed in the TCA, but also a lot of ambition for the future about where it is that we can plug in and we can provide some really innovative solutions to help support the future transition of the Bulgarian economy.
Our audience sends us questions in the live chat.
Okay.
And what is the UK government doing to help business to prepare for the new UK border controls?
Yeah, okay. So, as you will have seen on the UK government announced just a couple of weeks ago, on the 11th of March, a new timetable for introducing import border controls into the UK. And they're now going to come into effect, not the middle of this year, but they will come into effect from the 1st of January next year. That's 6 months later than originally planned. And that's going to enable businesses to focus on their recovery, to continue to face, what's been a really unprecedented challenge around the pandemic. And with this timetable, it will now enable businesses to have a bit more time to prepare for the changes at the border, and will hopefully minimise the disruption as the UK and indeed the Bulgarian economy gradually reopens post-COVID. There is a new timetable, the details of which are available on the gov.uk website. It's quite technical. I can go through it if you want, but there is essentially what it does is it enables companies to defer some of the documentary processes around the checks until the beginning of January next year.
Another question is related to the cash that we can have with us when we are traveling. How much cash can I have with me when I travel from UK to Bulgaria and vice versa?
So there is, I'm just trying to find my notes through here.
If I'm not mistaken, it was around 11,000 euro before.
Yeah, so that has not, that's not fundamentally changed. That there is if you're carrying cash for your personal use to the UK, that hasn't changed. There are limitations, but the details of that are available on our gov.uk website. It's £10,000. My colleagues in the corner helpfully remind me. Thank you. There's a lot of detail here to stay on top of, but it's £10,000 in cash is the maximum that can be moved between the two countries physically. If you are lucky enough to be able to carry £10,000 in your suitcase.
Yeah. Are you aware of any problems that Bulgarian companies face when they import from the UK?
So we are aware of a few challenges, I think, for companies who are bringing goods to and from the UK and Bulgaria. As I said, I've mentioned the whole point about the changes in the border operating model for goods that are coming into the UK. For companies that are exporting from the UK, there are certain processes and procedures. Companies need to make sure they have the documentation right, that they've got their EORI number, which is something they absolutely do need to get sorted. But generally speaking, we are starting to see is that companies are adapting to the new realities, that they are starting to understand what the documentation processes and procedures are. But it is a change, and we are starting to see, I think, companies become used to and adapt to that. But as I said, the guidance on what it is in terms of the documentation that people need to fill in and to use is available on gov.uk. There are some particular challenges around distribution hubs and logistics companies, but we are starting to see those, particularly for exports from the UK. But we're starting to see those resolved. I think the other thing is we're approaching this conversation in a COVID context, right?
Indeed.
So we are fully aware that this is a difficult set of circumstances in which we're operating, and it's going to take a bit of getting used to. But I think what we are seeing is companies starting to become used to and adapt to what is a new set of operating parameters.
Do we need to pay VAT and complete customs formalities if we buy goods online from Great Britain for personal use? That is quite similar to the complicated question.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the short answer to that is essentially it's not a short answer, but it is people should only really be paying VAT in one marketplace, but there are sometimes additional charges that shipping companies will be applying and levying. So you need to check really carefully with the company that's shipping your products from the UK to Bulgaria, or indeed vice versa, and really making sure that you're paying VAT only in one market. We're closely engaged with distributors, closely engaged with logistics companies, and indeed with authorities here in Bulgaria. And we're hopeful that some of these issues will start to resolve themselves over the course of the next few months. But essentially the same as the rather complicated answer I gave you a moment ago about that.
Can I bring animal products with me? Is the next question I have.
Now, I'm going to check my notes on this because
that's really interesting.
It is interesting.
Oh, and then I have one for the defense industry.
Okay, let me do the defense industry one first while I find my notes on the animal product one. I mean, do you want to ask me the defense industry question?
Yes, please. Do you see any room for cooperation between the Bulgarian and the British defense industry? HEMUS, for example, the HEMUS exhibition could be a good platform for promoting the excellence of the British defense.
I attended HEMUS, and I mean, I think it is a great opportunity for British defence companies, and I met many of them while I was there, to be able to promote the excellent offer that UK defence companies have for countries such as Bulgaria. I mean, we are really close defence and security partners with Bulgaria. We have a number of programs ongoing to train together, to work together as NATO allies in what is a really strategically important part of the world. And I'm really committed to be able to sort of strengthen that as we go forward. I think one of the things that we have seen is a really strong attachment to the modernisation of the Bulgarian armed forces. And that's a positive thing. It's also an expensive thing, and defence procurement is a complicated long-term process as well. We want British companies to be very much part of that marketplace, and you'll understand that we engage with defence companies, with the government, with contractors, with British companies on a regular basis to kind of bring some of the really strong offers that UK defence contractors can bring to market.
Okay. There are three questions which are pretty the same and pretty similar. What will be needed entering UK as flight test for COVID-19, and will it be still self-isolation period, and if so, for how long?
I will answer that. I also owe you an answer on the question of the products, the animal products that come back into the UK. So the short answer is that certain products of animal origin, where they form part of a traveller's luggage when they come from the UK into the EU, are no longer allowed. And we've seen some, high-profile stories around British travellers now crossing the Channel and having their sandwiches taken off them because they bought them because there's been a change in rules. So this essentially concerns, for example, meat and dairy products. There are exceptions in terms of people's luggage for certain quantities of, for instance, powdered infant milk or special food for medical circumstances.
For personal use.
For personal use, exactly. But there have been changes, and bringing in food and processed food and dairy products, etc., unless it's for a specific set of exemptions, is now no longer possible. Your other question was?
Okay, back to the COVID question.
Yes. Okay.
What will be needed entering UK as flight test for COVID-19? Will it be still self-isolation period, and if so, for how long?
Okay, so currently, firstly to say we've got some really quite important restrictions in place in the UK for outward bound travel and indeed inward bound travel. And it's really important that we observe these because we're trying to stop the spread of the pandemic. We're trying to stop in particular the spread of variants from Southern Africa, from Latin America, many of which may not be as treatable with the vaccines that are currently available. So these restrictions that are in place are really important. For travellers travelling into the UK, currently, you require a PCR test taken up to 3 days before you travel. You are then required to self-isolate on arrival for a period of 12 days and take subsequent PCR tests on day 3 and day 8 of that period. Assuming all is okay, you can then go about your business. Obviously, if you at any of those stages you show that you have got symptoms, obviously don't get on the plane if you take the test before you travel, and that's what it shows. But if you subsequently show symptoms, then you will continue to need to isolate for that further period. There's also some really quite tight restrictions on people travelling out of the UK at the moment. So what we're saying to people is that unless it's essential, really essential, you should not travel from the UK. And people need to have a really justifiable reason and need to be able to demonstrate that. And if they can't, there are fines in place to prevent people from travelling at the moment.
What formalities do I need to fulfill to import agri-food products from Great Britain into an EU member state? That's a tough question.
That is a tough question. I might need to come back on that one. From the EU into the UK?
From the UK to EU. I guess that this is related to the changes in the controls, in the border controls.
Yeah, it is. So there have changes in the UK controls coming in. As I say, we have deferred some of the documentary processes.
Yeah, but they've been postponed, if I'm not mistaken, to...
From the EU into the UK, but not vice versa.
Oh.
But not vice versa. So there are a series of processes that you would need to complete in order to carry out exports of animal produce from the UK to the European Union, and declarations that you do need to fill in. Details on that are on gov.uk and and indeed available on the European Commission websites as well. If, and some of it is quite technical, if people do want specific advice or answers on any of those questions, then they shouldn't hesitate to get in touch with myself and my team, and we can answer that and point people in the right directions.
My next question, it comes from the live chat, is slightly personal. It has been around 6 months since you arrived in Bulgaria. Please tell us what impressed you the most since then.
Gosh, that's a very good question. I mean, I think it's been a really strange time to arrive in the middle of a pandemic. So, you know, when you learn to become an ambassador, it's all about getting out in your first 100 days and having as much impact, you know, in any leadership role, having as much impact as you possibly can, so that you can trade on that and build on that for the course of your mission. Trying to do that in the context of a pandemic, when I can't travel as widely as I might like, where I can't bring the team together, even in a way in which would be entirely normal, has been different, has been challenging, but we've managed, and my fantastic team has been a big part of making that happen. Where I have had contact with being able to get out and engage, I mean, I think I know I made the right choice to come to Bulgaria. I think the welcome has been very warm. The willingness to kind of continue to engage with the UK and look beyond what has been a challenging period in the UK's relationship with the European Union. Think about, okay, so what does it mean now going forward? What does the UK stand for in terms of its global role, in terms of its role in this part of the world? What sort of its ambitions for the trade relationship? I've had a really kind of warm and receptive audience to all of that. And aside from the kind of the personal side of really enjoying living in Bulgaria and getting out and exploring where I can, I mean, I think I'm really encouraged by that sense of interest and desire to engage and to understand and to build on what is already a really strong partnership.
We are almost running out of time, but there is still time for one last question. In terms of data protection, would the UK still work under the EU General Data Protection Regulation, or it will adopt new regulations for information security?
Right. So good question, and it has a big impact on businesses, and it has a big impact on government-to-government liaison on security matters, for instance. We are in the process of concluding, hopefully, an agreement that will roll over, update the frameworks that governed data sharing between the UK and the EU member states, and indeed entities in those two sides. We're working on that at the moment. It's one of those areas that at some point in the TCA negotiations we had hoped to conclude. Both sides concluded that it would be better to carry on that negotiation. The existing arrangements have been rolled over on a transitional basis, so current rules that govern data sharing are still in place, but we hope to have a new agreement and a new system in place very shortly.
I'm afraid that we run out of time. There are a lot of questions, and I see that the colleagues from the British Embassy offered very kindly to answer every question in writing after the event.
Great.
So once again, thank you very much for the time and for the conversation. It's always a pleasure to be your guest.
No, thank you for being here, and a great opportunity to talk to you.
Thank you very much to all of you for being with us. Have a nice afternoon.